everyone, and welcome to Beyond Focus TV. My name is Angie Daniel, and I am the hostess for the show. On tonight's show, we have with us Dr. Robert Gore. He is the president of CAVI. When we come back, I'll introduce him to you again, and then we'll continue our conversation. We'll be right back.
Beyond Focus TV presents
its third annual ceremony on Saturday, June 16 at the prestigious Crystal Manor,
1460 Flatbush Avenue.
Et oui, le samedi 16 juin 2013, venez célébrer tous les papas. Venez manifester votre amour à votre père, mari, frère, cousin ou ami, pourquoi pas.
Who will be Father of the Year?
You must be there to know. La soirée sera animée par la diva Martine Marseille. Come and bask into the artistry of Monvelino Alexis. DJ Duvet sera aussi de la partie pour vous assurer une soirée à nul autre pareil.
Hollywood style.
Lot of surprises, honorees, un grand gala pour honorer tous les pères. Valet parking will be available.
Maîtresse de cérémonie, Angie Daniel, Marie-Carmel Bastien.
Info 917-873-3996 or www.beyondfocustv.com. Papi chéri?
Oui, ma fifi.
I love you.
Oh.
I love you. 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 I love you.
Welcome back to Beyond Focus TV. Earlier, I mentioned that we have with us Dr. Robert Gore. He is a revisitor on our show. He was here the last time for Emidex, right?
Yes.
You visited us and we talked about Emidex, and I wanted to say to you, welcome again.
Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome to be here. I wanted to talk to you about what you are doing within Kings County right now as in the Brooklynites. So tell us a little bit about, for those of us who don't know who you are, so you can tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll get into CAVI.
Okay. Well, I'm an ER doctor at Kings County Hospital and in the Department of Emergency Medicine. I've been there almost 7 years. I can't believe it's been that long since we first met. It'll be 7 years in July. But since then, I've done a number of different things from resident education, global health, but one of my big passions has always been working with young people. And because of what we've been seeing with violence in the community, violence in schools, we started looking at different solutions to help combat and decrease the rates of violence in those specific areas. And we developed the CAVI program. And CAVI stands for Kings Against Violence Initiative. CAVI is also a Sanskrit term that means thinker and doer. And we started developing the CAVI program to look at solutions around the issue of youth violence, and mainly focusing on violence intervention, prevention, and youth empowerment.
Okay. So this is what you're doing in Brooklyn right now. Right. Just so we can briefly talk about the impact of what's happening. You are, I could say, I'm going to say it in my own words, and you're taking the younger generation under your wings to help them function within the society. Right? You were going to say something.
No. I mean, the main thing, and everybody's talking about violence intervention, but what are young people going to do? That's the key thing that comes up with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
You can, you say take a kid out of a gang, but what does that mean?
What does that mean?
In many cases.
And how do we do that?
Yeah, how do you do that? And is that even important to do? You have to, if you're going to remove them from one environment, you have to kind of supplement it with something else. And, growing up in certain neighborhoods, you have to have gang affiliations, If you live in Crip territory, you're going to need to know Crips in your neighborhood. If you live in Blood territory, you're going to need to know Bloods in your area. If it's another gang, you're going to need to know those people in your community. You don't necessarily need to disregard them, but there's certain activities that you...
I like the way you said that. I don't mean to cut you off, but knowing that they are there and being involved are two different things, right? So how do we okay, so first, CAVI was created to find a way to allow younger generation
Right.
a different path,
Right.
and instead of following certain group of people that would lead them to what we would call violence, right?
Right.
So you created a path,
Right.
right, to lead them into it. But you're saying like they need to know that the Crips are there, but not actually.
Right. I mean, again, we tell people that we're not a anti-gang program. Again, you grow up in certain communities, you need to know these people. Some of these people are your cousins, they're your brothers, they're your sisters, and you need to figure out how we can start working within the confines of our specific communities. But the CAVI program itself, we are a youth violence intervention, prevention, and empowerment program. We are hospital-based, we are school-based, and we are most recently community-based. We're building up that program right now. And we have a whole curriculum that we work with in the schools to focus on making sure that violent injuries and instances don't wind up occurring. We focus on conflict resolution, anger management, skills development, as well as product and idea development. We provide mentorship, and we even provide tutorial services within the confines of the school-based program. Now, the hospital program...
That's what I was going to ask you about.
Right.
Like, how is the hospital involved in CAVI?
Right. So the hospital components of the program, we are focusing on trying to make sure that many of our young people that come to the emergency department injured don't come back. You know, 44, almost 50% of people who get injured come back re-injured within a 5-year time frame, and the rate of being killed is as high as 20% within a 5-year time frame as well, which is pretty high. You know, most ER docs, nurses, and even some of our other staff members have seen young people who look like us that have come back multiple times. You go, you're here again? It's like, yeah, I'm here again. And sometimes injuries may not be as serious, and sometimes they can be fatal.
Yes, I've seen terrible ones.
You know, unfortunately. But so we started looking at trying to provide intervention services, making sure that we can provide follow-up, also working with a couple of other community-based organizations. I have to give a shout-out to 2 key ones. Man Up Incorporated, which is based out in East New York, as well as the Crown Heights Mediation Center.
Are they still working with?
We are working, as a matter of fact, we are about to officially launch our partnership program between the CAVI program, SOS, which is the Crown Heights Mediation Center, and Man Up Incorporated.
The Mediation Center.
So Crown Heights Mediation Center is based in Crown Heights. They have an intervention program called SOS, which is mainly based out in the community. They respond to shootings and other violent incidents, and also provide mediation services and do follow-up, pretty much similar to what we're trying to do in the hospital. And so it was very natural for us to develop this partnership with both of these community organizations to help decrease recidivism and recurrent injuries by providing those support services after violent incidents have taken place and have presented themselves to the hospital. It's a huge undertaking, and one group can't take it on alone. And as a matter of fact, you need a lot of different people with different backgrounds, and even same mission but slightly different ways of thinking to actually combat this problem.
So I hear you talk about the aftermath, like once violence happened, this is what we need to do. What happened to the before part?
Right.
Is there a way that we can? I mean, I know that there's some things we cannot prevent, right? But how can we reduce the violence? Well,
first of all, we have to think about specific risk factors for when people become engaged in violent injuries. Frequent exposure, well, first, being black, being Latino, living in an urban area, those are 3 risk factors off the back. And for many of us, we can't avoid it. We can't avoid being black, you can't avoid living in an urban area. Or you can't be Latino living in an urban area. Now, you also start looking at other things. Frequent exposure to violence in the home environment, in the school environment. So if you have a kid who's coming from a household where there's a lot of abuse that's going on, that kid is at increased risk. You start looking at kids who have a history of frequent fighting. You have kids who have exposure to violence because they are involved in possible gang activity, or even just in having access to weapons, whether it's firearms or penetrating trauma, or knives, or any sort of instrument that you can impale somebody with. Those are key risk factors. Doing poorly in school, underachieving. These are key things that eventually wind up getting kids involved in the coming to the emergency department.
I have a question for you when it comes to that. Is it like because the kids are exposed to that changed their mindset into thinking that they're not good enough? When we come back, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll kind of like talk about exactly why a child feel like they need to be involved in certain type of violence. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Dr. Gore, talking about CAVI. We'll be right back.
Beyond Focus TV presents
its third annual ceremony on Saturday, June 16 at the prestigious Crystal Manor.
1460 Flatbush Avenue.
Et oui, le samedi 16 juin 2013, venez célébrer tous les papas. Venez manifester votre amour à votre père, mari, frère, cousin ou ami, pourquoi pas.
Who will be Father of the Year?
You must be there to know. La soirée sera animée par la diva Martine Marseille. Come and bask into the artistry of Monvelino Alexis. DJ Duvet sera aussi de la partie pour vous assurer une soirée à nul autre pareil.
Hollywood style.
Lot of surprises, honorees, un grand gala pour honorer tous les pères. Valet parking will be available.
Maîtresse de cérémonie, Angie Daniel, Marie-Carmel Bastien.
Info 917-873-3996 or www.beyondfocustv.com. Papi chéri?
Oui, ma fifi.
I love you. 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 I love you.
Welcome back to Beyond Focus TV. If you are just turning on, we are here with Dr. Robert Gore. He is the president of CAVI, which is Kings Against Violence Initiative, right here in Brooklyn. It's an organization working with kids, trying to get them to understand that you don't need to be part of this type of lifestyle, but this is the way to create a new way for you. So earlier you were talking about like how certain criteria create this type of violence. But how do we change their mindset? How do we change the community's mindset into thinking that we could do better?
Well, first we talked about just identifying, understanding the risk factors for kids who can engage in violent activity. That's the first step. But then once you've identified that, what are they going to do? So you kind of think about what's been going on in the school system. You've cut back sports programs. You've cut back music programs. You've cut back funding for certain after-school programs. And so what is there left to do? Now even, especially, being here in Flatbush, being Kings County just right around the corner from the studio, just kind of thinking about some of the students that we work with. Many of them have parents who work multiple jobs. They may work single-parent homes. They may work, a few jobs at different swing shifts.
So they're home by themselves, literally.
Right. You have kids who are raising themselves. And I remember in a long time ago, you used to think about the United Negro College Fund. They said a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And then somebody said a mind is a terrible thing to develop on its own. You need people to actually help and stay involved in these young people's lives, from parents, from teachers, to people in the community leaders. You need the help from the religious community. It's not just one person's responsibility to.
So it really does take a village to raise a child.
It definitely takes a village. And so some of the key things we have to think about is what type of activity, what type of support is going to wind up helping young people, especially if they're involved in certain situations, but then what's going to happen after that. With a key emphasis on the behavioral health support. You think about what it's like when you have a child that comes to the hospital who's been injured. Let's say you have a 20-year-old man or 18-year-old guy comes to the emergency department that's been shot in the leg and been shot in the chest. He was in critical condition. And this is just a theoretical case, but this is something that happens on a regular basis. And, what happens after that? He got shot in his neighborhood. He can't walk because he's got a shattered femur. His leg is broken. He's scared for his life. And what winds up happening is, they may go to the OR for certain things. Once they get discharged from the hospital, we pay attention to the physical wounds, but not really paying as much attention to the mental. And so just like what happens with soldiers coming back from war zones, people get post-traumatic stress syndrome. You get PTSD or post-traumatic stress, you get depressed. Sometimes people start self-medicating, they're drinking, they're smoking, because they're trying to forget the horrors that they just went through. Now, you have somebody who's high, they're depressed,
upset,
angry. They're angry. They have all these different emotions and nobody to actually talk to about this, and they feel very vulnerable. And so what winds up happening, in order for you to not feel as vulnerable, some people wind up they want to just get something to help protect themselves. So
Yeah.
they may
So
get
they
a weapon.
they get a
They
gun.
may get their friends to retaliate because they don't feel that law enforcement is able to help their situations out. And so you wind up having this entire cycle go over and over and over again. And unless, so either somebody winds up moving away, which only happens in very small number of cases, or they wind up being killed.
Yes.
And then a lot of times that just perpetuates additional violence in other respects as well.
Okay. So what is CAVI doing?
So.
And that introspect, like
Right.
there and there, how do you get involved?
Right. So at least the school program, many of the students that are working with us in the school program, some of them have a history of frequent fighting. Some of them have been doing poorly in school. Some of them have been involved in gang activity. Some of them just need mentorship, like all of us do.
Yes.
Except, some of us had mentorship and others didn't. So we're there to help
Exactly.
provide that mentorship. We're there to provide support. Not to replace the school, but we're more of an adjunct to the schools that we're actually working with the parents. So because we got to work with the school, we got to work with the parents. If you negate those two groups, then those are two different areas that you can they can provide
Definitely.
follow-up and services to that child. You need that support service, that support in the home environment. If you have a parent that doesn't feel like they're being supported and they're having trouble with their child, then that child is going to engage in certain types of activity. The parent is going to be overwhelmed, and eventually they get tired.
It's always funny because whenever I see like something happen within the community and everybody's just like, we all are in the street, everybody's so upset.
Right.
Like we have the Kimani Gay situation. Right. Everybody's in the street, but sometimes you have to step back and think to yourself, as a community,
Right.
what could we have done differently? Right. Where did we? I feel like there are times when I personally will say to myself, I think we as a community have failed those kids. Right. Because if you have a 13-year-old or 16-year-old in the street at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, something is not working. Like us as parents, you understand? It shouldn't be like I'm going to look out for my own kid. I mean, I've seen kids react and like I take the bus sometimes to take my daughter to school, and I will tell them, sit down, act like you're human. Right. I mean, people
nobody checks them.
Exactly. And then we just are like, oh, everybody's so afraid. Everybody pretend like they're not there, but they are there. Right. So as grown-ups, as adults, what are we doing to change that mentality?
I think part of it is actually just increasing dialogue amongst parents about some of the issues that go on, because I think a lot of people feel that they're the only ones that are going through this. They think that their child is the only child that's having problems, and when in fact there are a lot of kids
everybody
that are having
between
problems.
the age of 13 and 18 is like,
or even younger
right
than
there.
that. I mean, you're a 12-year-old kid. You're supposed to be a knucklehead. That's part of your rites of passage. But if you don't have anybody helping to direct you, to help mold you, we're not trying to change who you are. We're trying to provide you other opportunities, at least help you realize a lot of the potential that you wind up having. So the school, we're working at the Wingate High School campus. We're going to be working at the Eagle Academy in Brownsville next. And we've been speaking in a number of other schools around New York City, but mainly trying to increase the dialogue amongst parents, also trying to increase dialogue between our group as well as the school system as well, so we can come up with solutions. So there's certain things that the New York City public school system does very well. One of the things that people say, there's nothing we can do about these kids. Well, many of these kids actually come to school. Some of them may not go to class, but they're coming to school. So if you've got
they actually get up in the morning.
They get up in the morning, and not everybody even comes late. The whole island time thing, you have a select few.
You do.
But they get up and come. So if you already get those students, they're already coming to a specific place.
What are you doing to keep their interest?
Right. What are you going to do to pique their interest? But then also, how do you support them once they leave the building? Because you start thinking about many of the students that we come in contact, some people in our program, some people that aren't even in our program that we just wind up meeting. If you've got instability in the home environment, if you've got kids that are worrying about where money is going to come from just their basic needs, and we're not even talking about just clothes, we're talking about just food. Food, toiletries, just basic things. If those things aren't being met, that child becomes extremely stressed out. And so instead of being in a position where that child is in an environment and they're trying to be able to thrive, they're just in survival mode. And when they're in survival mode, they have their guard up. And many people aren't receptive to suggestions or new information. So part of it is engaging the discussion, finding out what's exactly going on, but then giving other opportunities. And following through, that's the key. That's another key part. You got to follow up and you got to follow through. Following up and following through is important when you're engaging and being involved with a child. making the behavioral health support, whether a child has post-traumatic stress or not. But, just at least making sure that people are aware of different support services that are out there. Sometimes parents just need to talk. Sometimes kids just need to talk. They don't need to be medicated. They just need somebody to listen.
Yes, and usually that's the route we usually take. As soon as somebody comes out and say like, I'm having a stressful moment,
right.
People want to medicate you. But I want to continue to find out like what are you doing, because summer's coming.
Right.
It's not going to be any school.
Right.
So we need to talk about what's going to happen
right.
with CAVI for the summer and the kids that are involved.
Right.
What are we going to do with them? We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
Beyond Focus TV presents
its third annual ceremony on Saturday, June 16 at the prestigious Crystal Manor.
1460 Flatbush Avenue.
Et oui, le samedi 16 juin 2013, venez célébrer tous les papas. Venez manifester votre amour à votre père, mari, frère, cousin ou ami, pourquoi pas.
Who will be Father of the Year?
You must be there to know. La soirée sera animée par la diva Martine Marseille. Come and bask into the artistry of Monvelino Alexis. DJ Duvet sera aussi de la partie pour vous assurer une soirée à nul autre pareil.
Hollywood style.
Lot of surprises, honorees, un grand gala pour honorer tous les pères. Valet parking will be available.
Maîtresse de cérémonie, Angie Daniel, Marie-Carmel Bastien.
Info 917-873-3996 or www.beyondfocustv.com. Papi chéri,
Oui, ma fifi.
I love you. 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 I love you.
Welcome back to Beyond Focus TV. We are continuing our conversation on youth violence and Kings County. When we mean Kings County, Brooklynites. One of the things we were talking about is the kids. They need to have a place where they can go and vent.
Right.
Really, whether it's truth talking or just a place for them to go. What are we doing with them for the summer?
Well, for the kids in the school program, some of them are actually graduating. We're really happy that a number of them have actually just gotten into college. And so they'll be going off to school in the middle of the summer or towards the end of the summer. Some of them will be working. We are working on some job placement or at least internships for some of the students. Okay. Some of them will also be in summer school, so they'll be in a confined space. But mainly we're trying to figure out and link them up to other opportunities that can be financially rewarding, but also can just be help enrich them.
Okay.
Maybe be down exposing them to a specific career path that they may have a genuine interest in.
Very important.
Right. People just want to be heard, and they want to feel like some of their dreams that they have can be made possible. And so a lot of the stuff that we wind up doing, especially when we wind up talking with the kids in our school program, is figuring out, how do you actually develop a plan? How do you develop an idea? How do you not just develop it, but how do you carry it out? And so these are some of the key things that we wind up emphasizing for some of the students in the school program. Now, for the hospital program, we are providing support services to young men and young women who've been injured as a result of violence that are prevented to our Department of Emergency Medicine and or our Department of Trauma. And we are making sure that retaliation doesn't occur. And again, this is part of the partnership that we have with SOS and also Man Up Incorporated. We are linking them up to behavioral health resources, both within the hospital and also within the community. Again, this is introducing something to a particular vulnerable population that doesn't always have access to mental health services. And nobody thinks about it.
Well, you know what? When it goes back to mental services, we're thinking that it's broadly, when you hear it, you're thinking crazy.
Right.
And that's the problem with our community. It's like we don't really get to talk about and we have tons of problem.
Right.
Everybody sees it as like, well, I don't really want to talk about it.
Right.
But there's so many other different aspects to having mental issues.
Right. I mean, part of what we talked, if you tell somebody, I want to have you come see the psychiatrist or the psychologist,
everybody's like,
they go, whoa, no, I'm not crazy.
Exactly.
But we tell them, look, you've been through a stressful period, a stressful event, and you might not say you're scared right now, but I can see it on your face, and we just want to find out, would you be open to talking to somebody about this stuff? Just making sure we'll do some follow-up, making sure that you're okay. We'll come by the house and check on you and make sure everything is okay. But we also want to work with your parents. We want to work with your friends because they're also traumatized from this. If this has happened to their friend or their brother or their son or their sister, then how can that not, they already figure, they can also happen to me. So people become paranoid, and sometimes you just need to vent. Sometimes you need to be heard, but also you need to, work with people who are thinking about solutions. And I don't care. I mean, we care about the problem,
but we need to find exactly.
Right.
This is what my question was, like, how do we change this? How do we change this? I'm tired of all we hear is black men been shot, black men been this, and black men that. How can we change the atmosphere of our own environment? Like, what can we as a community do to help the system?
Right. I mean, a lot of this key stuff just comes back to mentorship. That's not the only solution, and mentorship is a part of the solution. But, making sure you have young people that are under your wing, making sure that you talk to them about some of the issues that they're going through, from issues that they're going on with puberty, hormones are raging, and, a 17-year-old kid is, still learning the way, and there are a lot of things that are going on in their head, both that we as adults understand, and sometimes we as adults have no idea because there's a generation gap. But part of it is actually just increasing the conversation between young people. People don't talk to them. They talk at them, but they don't talk to them or talk with them. So that's the first part. Then you kind of figure out.
So are you saying like we should do some sort of like a class for adults to learn how to...
No,
that's
very
serious. That should be what we do first, and then kind of like get everybody to integrate within conversations.
Right. Parenting classes, and people say, oh, I'm a good parent. I take care of my child. It's not just being financially being there, but it's how do you talk to a child, but also how do you engage them? Yeah. How do you get them to the point, a mentor of mine, who's a behavioral health specialist, she's a psychologist, she mentioned, moving from survival mode to thriving, and how do you encourage that?
Yeah.
And it takes certain skills. You think about what makes a master teacher, what makes a mediocre teacher. Some of this, some of them are doing very similar things, but a lot of it's in the fine detail. And the master teacher usually has a way of learning how to engage both the child and also engaging the parents and the family and figuring out what's the best solution. But again, doing a lot of follow-up and a lot of follow-through with this stuff. Saying it is one thing. Saying it, following up on it, and continuing to follow up on it is a huge, huge thing.
This is the end of our show. I know I'm going to see you soon. And I am really happy that you stopped by and shared with us. I can't wait for Kavi to take lunch and to whatever else, so next year we can come back and talk about it.
Thank you. Actually, I just want to say one more thing. So if people are interested in checking out Kavi, look at the website. It is http://kavibrooklyn.org. That's KAVIBROOKLYN.org.
Yeah, check them out. They have a lot to offer our young people within this community. I will see you next Tuesday, same place, same time. Enjoy your week. Bye-bye.